Welcome to Hiring Happy Hour, where we celebrate the human side of hiring. I'm your host, Nicole Hammond, and together we'll pull back the curtain on people shaping the future of work, the innovators, the dreamers, the change makers behind today's hiring experience. These are the real stories behind the dashboards, from leaders transforming talent acquisition to the everyday moments that remind us why we love hiring in the first place, to connect people with purpose. Hiring Happy Hour is brought to you by Smart Recruiters, an SAP company, the AI-powered software for superhuman hiring, helping organizations hire faster, smarter, and more human. Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining another exciting episode of Hiring Happy Hour. First and foremost, I want to thank all of our listeners, viewers out there as you continue to share and broaden our family. The Hiring Happy Hour is growing, and if you know anyone that you think would be great because of the impact they've made in this space, or they just have some great tips that could be shared with the broader family, please reach out to us, let us know. But today, our focus is on an amazing human who focuses on a topic that hopefully is near and dear to your hearts because it is to mine. He is someone who has spent 20 years making workplaces more human. We love this word, human, more inclusive and more joyful. I love when we say joy because your face smiles. He is an HR strategist and consultant who has spent over 2 decades helping organizations stop treating people like headcount, advising leaders at every level on how to build cultures rooted in trust, performance, and mutual respect. He is published co-author of The Joy Powered Organization, a dual certified HR senior professional, and a SHRM annual conference speaker. But most recently, he has published a new book, People Not Tasks, A Leader's Guide to Building Solid Employee Relationships. He is lead consultant and president of Invigorate HR. Please join me in welcoming Jeremy York. Welcome, Jeremy.
Hey, Nicole, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you today.
Oh my goodness. I am so excited to have you here today because I think what we are going to talk about is core and fundamental to any company out there. And to the points that we talked about in our earlier session, often gets overlooked. And so excited to hear about your impact in the world, but more importantly, just the insights that you have to share with our family and our Hiring Happy Hour audience. So we're going to dive right in. Jeremy, you have an amazing background as you've been in this space for a long, long time. And I think our audience is dying to hear what your hiring happy hour is. And as we think about that topic, it means an impactful moment in your career or something that you feel has truly influenced the space of HR and TA. So please share with our audience what that moment or thing is for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you hit the nail on the head while you were talking about the intro about people, right? The human component of things. And for some reason, that's always really resonated with me. And it's been part of my, my experience and really maybe more my mantra as I worked in this kind of space, which takes me to the whole element of workplace culture and how we really don't do a good job of being able to promote to express our workplace culture and really, I like to say, showcase our workplace culture in all elements of the employment relationship, especially when it comes to talent acquisition and recruitment. It seems like we forget a big part of that when we're out there because we're so focused on just getting the work done, posting the job, trying to connect with candidates. But culture is such a big part of everything that we shouldn't forget about it and don't need to forget about it as we're looking at, talent acquisition and recruitment. And one thing that I like to share with people more than anything is that culture, it's not a perk like we treat it sometimes where we act like, oh, we have a great workplace culture. We should be leading with that because it's about our lived experiences as people. And it actually attracts, it retains, it inspires people. Or if it's a bad culture, unfortunately, it could repel people, right? But it's really about not just what we put on our website from all that. It's about what we do when no one's watching. And I think when we think about talent acquisition and that whole process, that's where my HR happy hour is recruitment and the recruitment process and talent acquisition from workplace culture. So I look at it kind of in multiple phases, and if you'll kind of just delight me with this, talking about how it connects. One of them is from the standpoint of what we do before we actually hire people. And I think, Nicole, this is one of the things where we forget a little bit about it, right? People are wanting to just get out there, post to jobs. Hey, we got to get the candidate in the
Sure.
door, all this. But we really should be focusing on what kind of messages are we sending out there about our organization to get people to want to apply? Because candidates are researching us, right? Our companies long before we ever see their resume. And, they're trying to make a decision based on what they see in our job posting and our social media, from any Glassdoor reviews, any of those kinds of things that they can find out about our culture. So it's kind of like a culture preview to them, right? And our job posting in that sense is what I would call the first culture document that people actually see from us a lot of
Sure.
times, but yet we don't treat it like one. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yep. So this is interesting to me because if you asked the Nicole 5 years ago about culture, I would have kind of been like, like it is what it is. You either have a good one or a bad one, and there's not much you can do to influence, yet people try by, saying, "Hey guys, make sure that you are having good interviews even if you're not going to hire them because we want to make sure there's a good Glassdoor review or something in that regard." But I think what has been a testament for me is kind of feedback from my peers. At Smart Recruiters, we've had a ton of boomerangs. And it has come to my attention that with those boomerangs that the grass isn't greener, right? I think I've had my experiences prior to Smart Recruiters in the consulting world where I saw so many companies and everyone has their stuff, but where there were good traits of company culture and where there were bad traits of company culture. And I do believe, right, Smart Recruiters is a place that has bred empowerment, trust, transparency. And I think it's a testament to what you're going out and doing with these organizations. And you are absolutely right. It starts with the JD. It starts with that branding, right? Like a career site. All those things are your first point of an impression. But then to your point, also all the references or outputs that interviewers do on Glassdoor and other sites is like that balance that companies can't necessarily control. So tell us more about these secret sauces to one, as a candidate, how I look at a company culture, but two, as a company, what are the components I need to keep in mind?
I think it's interesting just to kind of talk about this, right? Is that 83% of job seekers, they're actually researching the company, looking
Good.
at reviews and ratings and all that before they even decide to apply, right? 83%. This is so important to them that we have also got stats that say that 32% of candidates who left their job within the first 90 days, here we go, cited culture misalignment as the reason. So this is
Leave it.
why this is so important, right, for us to pay attention to, and not just before the hiring process, but it permeates throughout all the things we do. So let's talk about the hiring process. The hiring process itself is a cultural experience. How you communicate, how long it takes you to respond to people, how you treat people through the process. I can tell you how many times I've heard from people that are out there, job seekers, talking about, well, I never heard anything, or they never got back to me, or, and even if you give one note that says, hey, thank you, but no thanks, we're, pursuing other candidates, that is something, and people remember that. And so every touch point along this process signals what our culture is like. It's our process, right? And so if the process is chaotic or it's transactional, guess what? Candidates feel that. They notice. And they remember that about the culture. And they remember, oh, okay, well, I'm being treated this way when they want me to come work for them. What's it going to be like when I actually show up and I get there? So I always coach my clients to really focus on the efforts they put into, promoting their culture and letting their culture really shine through this process. And also to think about how they want to come across to the candidates, because we want to be able to hire for values alignment, right? Not just the skills. The skill can be taught. They get people in the door, right? But how someone shows up every day and making sure that they're going to align with us, that's even harder. So I would say the interview process is really a cultural audition. Both sides are auditioning, right? Me as the employer, I'm trying to show you what we're about. You as the employee, trying to show me what I'm about. And, skills get you in the door, but the values, that alignment, the workplace culture that says, hey, this is what makes me feel like I'm a part of the team. That's what keeps people there. And that's really what's important when we're going through that whole hiring process. And really, the next part too that we sometimes really drop the ball on, Nicole, is onboarding.
Well, let's stop before we get into onboarding because I wanna touch on hiring process, right? We've talked about the JD, we've talked about, like, doing your due diligence, which good job, 83% of you for doing your homework and educating yourself. I mean, AI makes it so easy now. You best get that number to keep going up. But now the hiring process, and I agree with you, and I think the reality is, and I will say this as a stat for us to, like, measure success, 80% is good enough, right? Like there are people that are going to fall through the cracks. There are going to people that have higher expectations on like how this should look. But I think technology is a resource that we can use to ensure, to your point, like trust and transparency at the right moments, and then the human touch at those right moments to ensure that we are being realistic with our expectations of what success looks like when it comes to the hiring process. So, my question to you before we get to onboarding, because I think there's a lot of good content here, is as you work with companies, what are you hearing as far as where are those points where they want communication, right? Like I get whether it be email or text or Slack or Teams or whatever the candidate is using, we should meet them where they are in the mechanism. But what are the points within that hiring process that they truly feel they need more?
Yeah, that's a great question. And let me preface it by saying right now in today's modern society of applicant tracking systems, there is not an excuse for not being able to communicate to candidates where they're at in the process because we can set the workflow up in the applicant
Totally.
tracking system to send an email once the workflow changes or the status changes. It's easy for us to do that, but we don't do it. We don't take the time out. But candidates are dying for some type of touch point, and you don't have to do it at every stage in your process. But we definitely want to acknowledge that you received your resume. Boom. That's a very easy one that people want
Totally.
some feedback on. Did they even get it? Right. Two, they want to know if our resume has even been looked at, and we can easily set something up with all that. And are we really being considered for the job? So I think acknowledging that we've received the resume, acknowledging that it's been reviewed, and just acknowledging throughout the process, whether they're not moving forward, if they're not going to be considered for an in-person interview, let's go ahead and notify them then. If they are moving on to the next stage, let them know what that looks like. Let's keep that going. And obviously, we're going to connect with them if we want them to interview, right? Because we're going to actually want to, talk with them one on one, and we know how that communication. But then on the back end, let's not forget if they're not going to move past that. Let's notify them then and go ahead and let them know if we're pursuing other candidates. I think a practice, at least, because I've been in this business for a long time. I know early on in my career, the practice was, well, let's not notify candidates or anything like that until we've hired the person and let them know.
Sure.
The workforce today doesn't subscribe to that type of communications program or style or protocol know what's happening at all times. And it's okay for us to communicate that, even if it's just an email that says, hey, we're moving you to the next stage in the process. They just want to know. And I think we can easily set that up. And let's just be transparent. And here's the other thing, and I want to use this word because I think it's important, is let's be authentic to who
Mm.
we are as an organization, right? And I don't know, maybe if we're not communicating, maybe that is the authenticity.
Not the best brand, right? But yes.
Not a great way to promote yourself at the same time, right?
Yep.
So, but I think those are the steps within the hiring process that we need to let people know things. And I think we should at least have during the process, 2 to 4 communications. I don't think that's much to ask.
And I think for our listeners, that's fair, right? I think all of us know that now, to your point, we are in a world where people need instant. I can't even think of the right word, but instant. And so, whether it's related to communication, whether it's related to gratification, whether it's related to feedback, they need that more often and easier access to it. With that being said, I think what I've seen is you talk about authenticity, is I've seen some authenticity turn into now higher standards. So, for example, I'll give you one. It used to be a black box. Now it's okay, we tell you where you are in the hiring process. Now, to take it a step further, we ask you to join our community. And so you're now also talent pooling, keeping them warm, being able to communicate and campaign your brand or different resource groups within your organization. Now, I think where we're seeing the world going is even more thoughtfulness related to candidates with what we're calling reverse matching. Hey, you applied to this job, but that might not be the best role for you, but here's another one that is. Or if you are, nice and like to share, here's other companies out there that have roles that are also like the one you applied to or based on the skill set you have. So I think your word authenticity is so true, but I love seeing companies take it to the next level.
Yeah. And I think I agree with you 100%. And what stuck out to me more than anything as you were describing that whole approach was people focused. You were thinking
Totally.
the candidate, what the candidate needed, how they were getting it, how they want to know about the job. And if you don't have anything for them, how you might share job opportunities or how you might share other jobs within the organization that they might be a good fit for, where you're really trying to look at it as being a people element and not just a transaction. And I think we've been set up in such a way, especially with technology, because
Yeah.
technology is pretty transactional, right? And we introduced all this technology into the way that we recruit and how we hire that we kind of made our processes transactional. And we forgotten about the person who's actually on the other end, who that person may be unemployed. They may be, have a
Yeah.
family trying to provide. Let's not forget about off the other end of that resume is a human being, right?
Yes. Yes.
To live their life to their best of their abilities, and we can't forget about that.
If we don't remember anything today, Jeremy's point that a human is on the other end of that resume is just resonating. So, one thing before we move on, because I think that this is huge. We've talked about elevation, we've talked about candidate first. I think let's talk about AI. You say we're in a world of transactional, but the world is getting smarter. Technology is getting smarter. How do you see this entire experience for related to culture changing with AI? And what would be your advice to our listeners?
Oh, great. And this is the topic I talk about a lot about what do we do with AI and still keeping it personal, right? To still have the human element and let's not just turn it all over to AI. The thing is that AI is only as good as what you train it to be or what you tell it to be or how your inputs are, right? So what I've learned and what I know to be true is that you can shape how AI works with your people. So if you're integrating AI into your business, into your organization, your operations, into your recruiting talent acquisition processes, you can kind of tell AI, this is our culture. This is our values. Here's how we talk to people. We are a people first organization. Here's how we want you to communicate with candidates. Here's how we want you to craft communications. We can tell AI what our culture is, how it looks, how it should feel, any of that. And AI can mimic those things with us and the way it interacts with people, even though they're not interacting with a human being at that point or stage in the game. So I think it's very important for us to be I'm going to use this word, very intentional about how we program or elevate AI in our organizations to ensure that it aligns with our workplace culture. We have to educate AI about our culture just the same way we would to an individual or human being, right? So that it can start to behave in a way that aligns with what our expectations are.
This is great. And I think listeners, and I'm harping on you today a lot, but we don't do this enough, right? Like we have the AI at our fingertips. And I will tell you right now, I am going to be better about including company values and culture as a default with anything I'm writing or trying to solve when it comes to hiring, because you are 100% right. We need to keep that authenticity. I'm coming back to your word. We need to keep the intention. I'm coming back to your word true to our organization for our people. So I love this because it's easy and we don't keep it consistent. All right. Keep going. Let's talk about onboarding. I know I cut you off, but I think we've broken it into the initial like experience application with the JD, the career site knowledge, all that. We've broken it into the hiring process. But now let's talk about that moment that matters when someone starts that experience of onboarding, whether it be prior to their start date, whether it be day one, whether it be after. Tell us how company culture is so imperative and what we need to do to make this effective.
Well, this is where, Nicole, so many people drop the ball, right? They invest hours, hundreds of hours sometimes, hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars, right? Being able to find the right person. And then they hand someone on their first day a stack of papers, a handbook, a resource manual, or whatever it is, and says, hey, good luck. Hope you make it. I mean, this this is what some organizations feel like onboarding is. And day one is not a formality. It's our first impression that lasts for years. Or
Yeah.
some cases, because it's so bad, it doesn't last for that long period of time, right? So culture has to be intentionally embedded into our onboarding process. And we can't just assume that it transfers, right? And on the things that we've been doing before. So one point that I want to make is that people need to understand that onboarding is not orientation. Orientation's paperwork, all that kind of stuff. Onboarding is about belonging into the organization, about how we induct them into our culture, immerse them into our culture, how we get them to understand our ways of working, right? So we shouldn't spend all these weeks recruiting them only to lose them in the first, 30 days because we handed them a bunch of, paperwork. We called it done. That's not what it is. You see, and here's another stat for you that I'll drop is that 70% of new hires, they're actually deciding in the first month whether or not this experience was good and good enough for me to stick around. They can be totally engaged, or they can they can decide to disengage here and continue their job search, even though they're collecting a paycheck from you. That's what they're doing until something better comes along, right?
Sure.
But here is the jaw-dropping piece that I want to kind of hopefully listeners will stick with on this one, is that 69% of employees are more likely to stay 3 years after a great onboarding experience. 69% of our hires able to stay for at least 3 years if they have a great onboarding experience that's out there.
I think you just save a number of companies a lot of money, like, if they just listen to what you just said.
I mean, this is the part. And if you think about being connected, or, people, we know the Gallup studies, right? That people leave
Sure.
managers, they don't leave organizations and all of that, right? We know that. So we know that there's a sense of relationship that's relational, that people have to feel a relationship with the organization where they work for it to be something that they want to stick with, right? And so we have to be able to create that from an organizational standpoint. And part of that is making sure that they have that great onboarding experience. And it's really important to people. It's not just about pay, and it's not just about what keeps people, hanging on throughout the employee's tenure. It's pay doesn't do that. Culture isn't something that we just sit and forget about and never talk about it again, because in order for it to be a retention tool, and it has to be reinforced daily, right? And it has to be supported in everything that we do, like how we manage, how we lead, how you recognize people. Hey, even how conflict is handled when we have that in the workplace, and we know that that's going to be there. So I think, this is all part of, this onboarding transitions into like the employee tenure, how long they're going to stay, what that's like. And I really kind of feel like that this is at the core of, my people, not tasks philosophy, right? Is that
Yeah.
leaders who genuinely invest in relationships, they build cultures where people want to stay and want to grow because it's relational from
Sure.
and I think really, and what I found, whenever I was working on the book, is that the data is clear. It's not about pay. It's about culture. It's about engagement. It's about well-being. It's about, connecting with the people that I work with in the organization. Those are what keep people from departing and going elsewhere. Those are the retention tools. So we have to look at it as culture and as a daily type of practice, not just something we talk about once a year, or not just the annual survey. It's about focusing on what is important to people. It's a workplace where people feel seen, not just some type of monetary bonus or something like that. When people feel like people, not like they're transactional, not just doing the work, they stay. That
Let
really is that simple.
So let's do this. I wanna play a game, and this is impromptu. You're just getting me excited because I think you're right. I call onboarding that second first impression, and I don't think we all do a great job of it, and I think we can, and I don't think it's that hard. So I wanna play a game, and we're gonna do this for 2 parts. One, we're gonna do it for that second first impression for onboarding, and then we're gonna do it for kind of that, like, year to 3-year tenure. So let's take this related to company culture. I want us to go in back and forth, and we're just gonna name one thing that we can do in that onboarding experience to truly elevate company culture and do it right. So I'll start, then you say one, and we'll go back and forth, and we'll see how many we come up with. And everybody take notes. All right. So I think it's important to send a welcome gift, like whether it's tchotchke related to your organization, but something that is tangible for them to get their hands on, a company mug, whatever it may be, as part of their welcome.
A signed welcome card signed by everyone in that department.
Love. Okay. I think a video from the CEO or something that comes into their inbox on day 1 that gives them a flavor of that authenticity of that company.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, that's you just like spoke. I've given you the thumbs up, and so I want to say a structured onboarding program that goes out to at least 90 to 180 days.
Ooh, ooh, that's such a good one, and I'm also stalling because I need to think. I think there is also a pre-boarding component to this. So now thinking about the candidate, but indirectly getting the organization ready to have their laptop, have their employee key card if they need to get into a building, and all of that, because if it comes late, that's a bad first impression.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I actually have a story about that to where I started an organization and I went to work for them. I didn't have my laptop for almost a month. Here's another one. Now, you may laugh. You may think this is funny, but it's really important. Showing people where the bathroom is. How many times people have showed up to a new spot and people have forgotten to show them like where the bathroom is, the break room is, any of those kinds of things.
Okay, another one to play on the next level down from the CEO video is a hiring manager phone call or message.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Love that. Love that. Okay, so I would say the next thing would be to take the new hire to lunch or schedule a lunch within their first week, so they can be able to make connections with people they work with in a non like I have to do work setting.
And virtual could be both of you get Grubhub or Uber Eats and sit down on a virtual lunch, right?
Exactly. Absolutely.
The informality of getting to know someone. I love this. Okay, I'm gonna take that a step further and say a buddy, right? Like 30, 60, 90, a buddy that shows you the bathroom, but also is your person on who to go to for what, where to go, whether you're remote or not.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Love to have like a new hire mentor. Is saying what that is. Yep. I would say the other thing is to have, a weekly check-in with the employee and
Ugh.
let them drive it. What do you need? What you learned? What was the newest thing that you didn't know about before you started that you've learned this week? And just allow them to be able to drive it instead of you barking at them. Let them share their experience with you, and you'll be surprised how much you'll learn.
Oh my goodness, this is great. One thing that I think is imperative, again, behind the scenes, but for the candidate to have a good 30, 60, 90, is a checklist for their manager. Here are the people they need to meet. Here are the kind of like enablement programs they need to go through. Here's the things that you need to do for them in those 30, 60, 90, and have the templates and make that hiring manager look like a rock star.
Absolutely. And you stole one of mine in that checklist, which I was going to say, making sure that they schedule meetings with other people in other departments in the organization to be able to connect and get to know what they do.
Okay. I don't have any more, do you?
No, I think it's good. I think it's great stuff.
Okay. Okay, look at us. See, okay. So now let's broaden this, right? Like, let's go past those 90 days and hopefully our candidate that we've hired feels amazing with all that they just got. And let's take it to culture ongoing, right? You gave this 69% last 3 years if things are done right. So now we've given you all the tools to do it right. How do we keep them motivated? How do we keep them energized over these years? So let's go back to our back and forth, and I'll let you start, Jeremy.
Okay. So, number one, talk about culture often.
Okay, I love this. Is that I have a question. Is that like reminding people of the values, bringing it back to the values, or like what do you mean by that?
So let me explain. So that's part of it, right? And being able to talk about the values, the core values of the organization, why we do what we do. But it's taking it a step farther and being able to tie in work tasks, projects, interactions, goals, plans, strategic initiatives, whatever it is, and circling those and tying them back to the overall core values of the organization to let people know that the work is all related because those core values that drive our culture, that's at the center of every decision we should be making, right? And our culture should be supporting all of those.
Okay, I love this. I'm going to take one that I think I see a lot of successful organizations do really well, and that is recognition. Whether it's informal or at the department level or organization level, I think having a cadence of recognition and motivating individuals by giving them that opportunity to be recognized by their peers, by leadership, is huge.
Well, and Nicole, you said it. Peer recognition is a huge component. A lot of organizations think these recognition programs, which are really successful, have to be driven by the organization. Well, no, they really should be peer driven, right? Peer nominated kinds of folks, things of that way, where peers sit on a committee and or whatever it is, and they'll allow people to nominate their peers. This is one way that you really support the culture from within because the criteria for measurement in this recognition really should be how they live values, how they live the
Yes.
core values. So I think that's a big part of it too. The other part is that we really need to train our leaders, whether it's our managers, our junior managers, or whomever it is, on our core values and our culture and what that looks like every day to help them, one, to be able to model it, and two, to recognize it whenever they see it within their people. And this is a big area that doesn't really happen a lot where we think, oh, people just know what it looks like. Well, no, they don't know unless we tell them or help them understand. And so we have to train the leaders and managers on that.
Love this. Training is at the heart of me. So, yes, Jeremy. Okay. Transparency. And I know we've talked about this, but I think I go back and forth. Our CEO is very transparent. And there's been moments where I'm like, oh, is she sharing too much? And I will tell you, 99% of the time, I say no because I appreciate the transparency. It is a feeling of cohesion. She does office hours for the organization on a monthly basis, and it's like an ask me anything. And she is honest. And I think I appreciate this because it feels like no matter what level you are in the organization, one, you have that connection to the C suite, but two, you are hearing the same thing others are hearing, right? You're hearing it from the horse's mouth. I just think I called our CEO horse, but that's besides the point. But you are hearing this from the source of truth, right? And I think that transparency then emulates down into other leaders in the organization and brings a world of trust.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And trust is so important. And one of the things I say about trust is that when I do training, especially in leadership training, I ask, because we're talking about trust being the foundation of, all of our relationships. I ask people, what is the root of trust? What does trust even mean? And
Yeah.
struggle to be able to define it without using the word itself, right? But
That's
I think what trust is that if you think about to like Patrick Lencioni, he talks a little bit about this about trust in teams, but it's the belief that we have that other people have our best interest in mind. So the reason that I trust you as a leader is because I believe that you're looking out for me. What that is. And so I think trust is really a big component of that. But I want to piggyback off of what you just said about, your leader being transparent. I want to say, in addition to that, authentic communications. You tell us it like it is, right? The good, the bad, and the ugly. And if you can't share something with us, you say, hey, I can't share this with you right now, but as soon as I can, I will. Right. And those are kind of communications we have instead of, trying to beat around the bush or come up with some some kind of excuse or anything, people can see through those. And that authenticity is what people want, right? And those authentic communications, because it brings us back to that area of being real, building a relationship, being humans, and realizing that we're not perfect and we don't know everything.
Yep. Okay. I'm going to give my last one because this is getting too fun and we have more to talk about. Is measuring success. And I think what I mean by that is feedback from the manager, feedback from the candidate, like 30, 60, 90 days, how's it going? But then as we continue, like performance reviews, feedback mechanisms on not only the process, but the people. And so I think that you need to make sure data is involved in this whole process. And while all of you are nodding your head and saying, yeah, 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 I would argue we're probably not doing it as effectively as we could.
Or we're not doing it all.
I was trying to be nice, but yes.
A lot of organizations out there that aren't doing it all. And that's not a dig on anyone. It's just the reality, right? And that's
Yeah.
the thing. We have to meet ourselves where we're at.
Yeah.
Right. We all know we wish we should have, could have, would have done out better, whatever. But the reality of it is it is what it is. And we are at where we're at. And we need to recognize that and just meet ourselves where we are and try to do better. That's really what it is.
That's awesome. Okay, Jeremy, I want you to round us out on company culture because this has turned into a fascinating conversation. And I hope a lot of our audience takes from this. But final words as you think about where to start, impact you can make tomorrow. Of course, your book, because I think that will be just a guiding principle for everyone. But like what else do we want to close with when it comes to company culture and people?
I think it's to pause and take a moment to step back and look at where you're at today and be realistic and honest about your organization. Ask yourself some tough questions like, is our culture well defined? What is our workplace culture? How would I describe our workplace culture? Does our core values align with our workplace culture? Or do we even have core values? Because there are organizations I work with that, they haven't developed those yet, right? And they're still trying to navigate those waters. So we have to take a moment and step back and kind of assess that and look at it and ask ourselves some of the tough questions. Then we can begin to look forward and say, where do we want to be? Who do we want to be? What do we want to be? How do we want to show up to our employees? How do we want to show up to people outside of the
Yep.
organization? And when people stop working here, what do we want them to say about us? And that is the key question. And that will help us guide the direction we need to go in developing our culture, our workplace culture, and what that looks like. And then we begin to be strategic and start putting together some tactical plans around how we make this change and what you need to do. But first and foremost, it is just to, one, I said it earlier, we just need to meet ourselves where we're at today and be like, okay, I'm going to take that breath. Here I am. Pause. Okay. What do we need to do? And we just need to be able to kind of focus on that. That's the place to get started. And don't get overwhelmed because it will seem like it's a huge undertaking,
Sure.
but just be real with yourself and break it off bit by bit.
Love it. Thank you, Jeremy. This has been fascinating. I think it's so helpful and I think there's a lot that people can take from it. Now I know our audience wants to learn more about you. Who is Jeremy? What makes him tick? What makes him so passionate about corporate cultures and authenticity and all of those components? So tell us what your personal happy hour is.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I wish that I had some great, exciting kinds of things to knock everyone's socks off. But, outside of the office, my happy hour looks a lot like my work. It's really all about people. I'm just very passionate about human beings and people and, just our place here in this world. And so showing up for people who really need it, even when they're not your clients or your employees, or even in your community in a traditional sense, that's really what's important to me. Mm, I believe that, there's this old saying to whom much is given, much is required. And I feel like when we have a platform in whatever way, shape, or form that is, we should put that to good use. And so, I serve on a lot of nonprofit boards. I work with a lot of nonprofits in the area. One board in particular, I work with, really works with marginalized people. And, their mission is to serve those who are marginalized, and that allows us to walk alongside of those people in some of their most vulnerable moments. And that's not really, even though at the board position, it's not board work to me. It's
Um,
more just being human, it's a
yeah.
calling, just
Yeah.
people. And I think the people not task mindset, it doesn't necessarily just clock out when I leave the office. It's who I am. And board service is a way that, brings my expertise in this world, this work world, but also it allows me to know that I'm having an impact in my community and I'm having an impact with people. And so, every opportunity that I get to work with a nonprofit or to work with organizations that are serving other people, it's meaningful to me because I believe that's what we should be able to do. Well, we all are dealt different hands of cards in our lives. Some have a really good hand. Other people have a terrible hand, right? And it's not anything necessarily that is of our own doing a lot of times, but when we are able to give, are able to share, are able to, devote extra time or help people, I think we should do that. And that's one thing that I make sure that I not only do at work, right, but I also do in my personal life at the same time. So
I can see that in you. I can see it in you. You're very selfless and I'll take one of your words, authentic, but I think that's probably what makes you great in both worlds and impactful and why we asked you to be on this show.
yes, I find, the same joy like that I get at work and doing this kind of thing, even
Sure.
just
Yeah.
watching people be able to find their footing and to be successful. I want to see everyone be successful in their own way.
Well, I love that. I love that, and I appreciate you going out there and making that part of your personal and professional mission. It's huge. It's huge. All right, my favorite part, this or that. We talked about this, and I think you're gonna be a pro now that you've already, like, indulged me with a game. We're gonna do another one. So if you recall, you pick one or the other, you can elaborate, you don't have to. We've got a few here. We did talk about dogs a lot yesterday too, just from a company culture perspective. So I will preface, there might be a few dog-related ones because you mentioned that's like a low-hanging fruit for companies that wanna make culture fun or kind of bring impact, especially post-COVID to a world where they're empathetic with people. So, just stay tuned. There's a little more there, but you ready? Okay. Resume or LinkedIn profile?
Resume.
Okay. We're gonna dive right in. AI or no AI?
Oh, definitely AI. It's the next frontier.
We're on the same page. Okay. Now let's take it to the next level with AI. Skills matching or culture matching?
Oh, I'm going to say culture matching because ultimately that's really is the big win. Skills matching is important, but culture matching is like the cherry on top.
Yes, I agree. And I think from what we've talked about, it's been the theme. All right. Dogs in the office or work from home?
That's a tough one. That's a really hard one. And I want to say, um, oh gosh. Well, the reason I think we have this question is because I have a client that it has part of their culture is to have dogs in the office, and people love it. They get to bring their pet. Everyone loves it. So I'm going to have to say dogs in the office just because that client is so near and dear to my heart, and I think it's wonderful.
Love it. Love it. Okay. Office mascot or ping pong table?
Oh, office mascot.
Mission first or people first?
Oh, you are giving it to me hard there. Oh my gosh. People first with me. Like we always have to put that out there. Yeah.
At first, there can be a second, right? Like we could just do both.
People first, and then we align people with a mission,
There we go. Purpose or perks?
purpose,
I could have guessed that one. Career site or employee referrals?
employee referrals,
Okay. Reward or recognition?
recognition,
Okay. Transparency or optimism?
transparency, because transparency is truth, right?
Yes.
It's trust. Optimism can sometimes be masked in, I'm just going to say a deception.
Yes, fluff. Fluff. We call it fluff. Um, camera on or camera off?
Oh, definitely camera on,
Yes, this is a personal pet peeve of mine. 4-day work week or work remote?
work remote,
Okay. Beaches or mountains?
mountains,
Okay. Dogs or cats?
dogs,
Okay. Vacation or staycation?
Oh my goodness. Vacation.
Yes, we all need one, right?
As they get older, staycations are much more appealing.
And travel's expensive right now, so that's a whole other piece. Okay, let's see. I had another one and now okay. Oh, we talked about this yesterday, spirits and distilleries, and we are talking about happy hours. So, whiskey or rum?
I'm gonna have to go with rum.
Okay.
I will get a lot of hate for that probably. I'm just not a whiskey person, but definitely rum and coconut rum at that.
Okay, look at you. I feel like I'm seeing Malibu in my mirror.
And Diet Coke, one of my faves.
Okay, love it, love it. And then the final one is, oh my gosh, I've lost my train of thought again. So,
Talking about these spirits.
we were talking about the spirits. Okay, here it is. Uh, Happy hour out or happy hour at home?
Happy hour out.
Love it, love it. Get out of that house. Love it. Okay.
Who you're going to run into, who's going to be your new best friend, who you're going to network with, who you're going to connect with. It's amazing.
Oh, man. Jeremy, thank you for humoring me with a number of games today and truly educating our audience and our family on company culture and authenticity and intention and belonging. These are words that are sticking with me. Tell our audience where they can find you, where they can connect with you.
Absolutely. Well, you can find more information about me at our company website, which is invigoratehr.com. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn and pretty active posting on LinkedIn. And those are the two best places. Or you can always email me at Jeremy, Jeremy, at invigoratehr.com.
Love it. Love it. Thank you, everyone, for listening today. Thank you, Jeremy, for joining us. This has been so fun and so enlightening, and I think something that everyone can take something from. This has been another episode of Hiring Happy Hour, and we appreciate you. And hopefully, you are getting something out of this and using it to make an impact in the HR TA space. And we will see you again soon. And that wraps another episode of Hiring Happy Hour. Thanks for tuning in and for believing, like we do, that hiring isn't just about filling jobs, it's about the impact we make. To catch more stories and show notes, visit hiringhappyhour.com. This episode was brought to you by Smart Recruiters, an SAP company, an AI-powered platform for superhuman hiring. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and keep humanizing hiring. Cheers!